Welcome to the Fight with Depression podcast, your companion in the battle for better mental health. Join us as we share stories, insights, strategies that help you understand, manage, and overcome depression. In the episode today, we are going to discuss understanding the lie of I don't have enough faith. We're going to be addressing the false narrative that if I had enough faith, I could move mountains. We're going to look at the impact of misunderstanding faith and mental health. We are going to reframe our faith in the lens of mental health. And we're going to navigate guilt and conviction. So thank you for joining me, and let's get started. I spent most of my life reading the Bible from a perspective that it was never intended to be viewed from, which doesn't help when you already suffer from anxiety. So don't go through the same difficulties that I have gone through. Struggling with anxiety or depression or whatever other mental illness is not a failure of faith. So we're beginning season 2 of the podcast and the first season on video. We're going to be exploring the misconceptions and misinterpretations of the Bible and how those can lead to increased anxiety, as well as further your struggles with any other mental health condition that you may have. And we're going to be correcting those perspectives to reconcile the issues between faith and mental health. So let's get into it. We're going to start with understanding the lie of I don't have enough faith. And in the book that I put out, I write, I continue to wonder why God does not relieve my anxiety and my requests for help are left unanswered. I forget that each time I struggle, I continue to make it through. Is this God reaching into my life in order to control it? Or does he maintain his promise of free will, allowing me to maintain control, giving me the strength to persevere? But I go on and I say, but no matter how many times I'm witness to my own life, I still feel that I am not in control, and I begin to question God's sincerity. And if I feel that I cannot control my own life and can't trust that God cares for me, then do I conclude that I'm really without faith? And regardless of any religious or spiritual faith, mental illness can lead to self-doubt. And I say can. I wouldn't be surprised if it will lead to self-doubt. The things that we tell ourselves are, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good looking, people don't like me. Whatever lies that you tell yourself that you start to believe are actually true. So the question then is struggling with a mental illness a sign of lacking faith? Or is there more to it? So we'll be getting into this quite a bit more, not just in this episode, but in the future as well. But we start to have these conflicting thoughts, and we start to. I say we, if you're anything like I am, we say if God doesn't take away my anxiety, my depression, my fill in the blank, if God doesn't take this away from me, does it mean that he doesn't care? Is it my fault? Do I not have enough faith? We start to tell ourselves that it's because of us. Something in my life is happening that I can't control. I can't take away. Maybe it's my problem. Maybe it's my lack of faith. So let's look at this false narrative of if I had enough faith, I could move a mountain. I think we say that a lot. Faith can move a mountain, or we reference that a lot. Moving mountains, and there's a lot to that, and we're going to get into some of that here. But if that mountain doesn't move, is it because I don't have enough faith? So I guess we'll start there. Matthew, and this comes from Matthew 17:20, where Jesus is essentially the text that we get out of it, or the narrative that we get out of it, is faith as small as a mustard seed can move the mountains. And what he says is, and this is in reply to his disciples. They couldn't cast out a demon, and they say, why couldn't we do that? Jesus says, because you have so little faith. Truly I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. In Luke 17, verse 6, he says that if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mulberry tree, be uprooted and planted in the sea, and it will obey you. So is this a strict, literal, surface level of interpretation of the scriptures? If you have enough faith, you can literally tell a mountain to move. If you have enough faith, you can tell a tree to get up and move into the ocean. If you have enough faith, you can tell your anxiety to be gone, and it will disappear. If you have enough faith, you can tell yourself, you can tell your depression to go away, and you're immediately going to be happy. And I think if you take that strict literal interpretation of those scriptures, I think you're doing the writers an injustice. So the Bible is not a how-to book written for me as a way for me to live my life. It's not a plug and play. It's not a choose your own adventure, or a book explaining if you do this, then you will receive that. If you just do this, then this is what you'll get in return. It's not a weapon. We're going to get into that. It's not something to be memorized to later regurgitate and attack somebody with what it says. And it's not a book to tell me that I'm a failure because my personal struggles have not been alleviated since I didn't put all the literal text together in the proper pieces of the puzzle. We're going to look at something from the Cambridge Bible for Schools and Colleges. And the author says that such expressions are characteristic of the vivid imagery of Eastern speech generally. To, quote, remove mountains is to make difficulties vanish. The Jews used to say of an eminent teacher, he is a rooter up of mountains. And if we look at Ellicott's commentary for English readers, the author says that it was a hyperbolical form of our Lord's words, excluded from the thoughts of the disciples as from our own, the possibility of a literal interpretation, and that his words were dramatized by a gesture pointing to the mountain from which our Lord and the three disciples had descended. So when you start to look at the Bible as it actually is, and that's what we're going to be looking at in this series of reading the Bible, is what does it actually say, and what were the intentions of the authors, the speakers, what what were they trying to represent to the people who were going to read what they wrote, and what were they trying to represent to future readers? Moving mountains and uprooting trees refers to overcoming obstacles, not magically changing the world to our own will. So just imagine, if you will, you're Jesus, and you just came down from a mountain with three disciples. I don't want to do that. We're not going to say we're Jesus. You are one of the disciples, and you came down from the mountain with Jesus, and you're tired. It was a hike. I live in Colorado. We hike up and down mountains, and there are many times where I've gone, I I wish this was flat. I wish I could get to the point I want to get to be able to see, overlook whatever, you're overlooking, to get to wherever you want to go, and but just have it be flat. But not make it easy, because I don't want everybody else doing the same thing, because then everybody else is going to be there. It's going to be packed, and I'm not going to be able to see anything. So it would be real nice if it were flat. So just now put yourself in the disciples' position where you're exhausted. You've been hiking who knows how long all day. And Jesus points to that mountain that you just went up and then came back down, and says that if you had the faith, then you could move that mountain. Are you actually thinking that Jesus is telling you that you can change the topography on your own because of your own desires? No, I wouldn't take it that way. I would hope a lot of people wouldn't either, unless they're just trying to discredit what he's saying. And it's not why we read the Bible. It's just for to discredit what it actually is telling us. So as I record this, there are some very, very large fires happening in California. And I don't know exactly what those people are going through out there. I definitely don't know what the people who have lost their houses and everything they own are going through. I know a little bit about what the firefighters are going through, because, and I don't want to get into it. This is not about me, but when we had the Marshall Fire here in 2022, 21, 21, we spent, I don't know how, 12 hours or whatever, fighting that from the time we first received the first calls, till the time that we could actually take a break and shove some food down our throats. And somebody had showed up at one of the ambulance crews was coming around, and they were bringing pizza to everybody. And when they showed up with that pizza, it was such a relief. And I remember you look at before that, and you're going, I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. Now, I really couldn't eat a horse. There's no way. First of all. Second of all, I wouldn't eat a horse. Think about how hungry would you have to be to actually eat a horse? Now, fast forward 2,000 years, if somebody going to look back at my life and say, well, he was an awful person because he wanted to eat a horse. Well, no, it's a figure of speech that we're talking about now, that a lot of the viewers, listeners, I don't think it's a big phrase anymore. And the readers then, as well as the disciples, knew that Jesus wasn't saying you can literally make that mulberry tree uproot itself and walk into the ocean. And it's important to us because we have to understand that I'm not a failure. You're not a failure because our perceived lack of faith doesn't result in the natural world altering in an unnatural way to suit our personal desires and not necessarily my needs. Because a lot of times what we think we need are actually just the things that we would like in that moment. So, what impact will misunderstanding faith and mental illness have on us, on me, on you? I spent many years of my life begging God to take away my struggles because I thought that it was just a matter of faith. And if I had enough faith, that He would take away my struggle. I compare this with a snowball a lot. If you've listened to my podcast or anything, I'll talk about the snowball effect. And I thought it was my lack of faith that caused it so that my personal struggles weren't going away. My anxiety wasn't going away. My depression wasn't going away. And in turn, that made me feel like a failure. And because I was a failure, it made me struggle more with my faith, which then made me feel like more of a failure. This isn't just necessarily a lack of faith causing mental illness struggles or mental illness struggles causing a lack of faith, however. Because, so I'm going to read, there's an article I like to do, if I'm going to look at something and I'm going to look at actual data, I try to avoid opinions, obviously. It's a long title here. Against the Stream, Religion and Mental Health, the Case for Inclusion of Religion and Spirituality into Psychiatric Care. Anyhow, so the author says that the presence of religious faith is associated with greater hope, increased sense of meaning in life, higher self-esteem, optimism, and life satisfaction. Sounds great, right? I guess what that means is the more faith you have, the better outcome you have on life. Sounds awesome. However, it also says that although some studies demonstrate reduced anxiety rates, others indicate the anxiety levels are increased in the more religious. So this kind of study goes along with what I see from time to time is people who struggle with faith start feeling a lot of anxiety, self-doubt. Their faith is tested in spite of their beliefs that they will get better. So then I ask why? Why would positive spirituality, positive faith improve your depression symptoms, decreases suicide rates? But why is it my anxiety levels go up? Because I feel like it's not just me. It wasn't just my misinterpretations or my misinformation or anything that brought up that brings this about. I'm not the only one who's dealing with this. They're feeling guilty about doing something wrong or not doing everything, not being perfect. Am I guilty because I'm not perfect? Should I feel guilty for not being perfect? I started looking at, well, what does the text actually say, and what did the text actually mean? And so I started looking at a lot of different resources, and I was doing research, and it led me to the Bible Project. And if you have not heard of that, they've got a website, podcasts, everything. Started listening to some of the podcasts, and as I was listening to them, I kind of I made a mistake, and I started listening to a series that was years into their podcast episodes, and I was completely lost, and was they were referencing things that they had brought up many years before, and I was lost, and once again I misinterpreted what they were saying, and but it did start to challenge what I was start to challenge my thinking a little bit. But they actually reference what did the actual scripture say, and what did it mean. That was beneficial to me, whether you enjoy, if you've heard of them, if you've never heard of them, if you dislike them, if you like them, whatever. It did give me that resource of being able to think about, well, like I said, what was the actual meaning there? I had been searching for something that I didn't know there was a resource available for. I wasn't aware that there was a resource for interpreting one of the original written languages that it was written in. The interpretations of the New Testament are, New Testament was written in Greek. Jesus spoke Aramaic. So there's going to be interpretations between what he said and what was written. It was also written many years later. So if somebody in 40 years from now says, well, after the Marshall Fire, Christopher said he could eat a horse. Well, is that what he said, or did he say, like, I am extremely hungry, and they're just trying to show they were there and wanted to show how hungry I really was? It doesn't change what actually happened. And my personal reframing of my faith and my mental illness came with a lot of rock bottom moments. It probably wouldn't have had to come with so many rock bottom moments if I was not so stubborn. If I were not so stubborn, I don't know. But I realized that God's compassion and his presence in my life are not conditional on my ability to change my circumstances and alleviate or eliminate my mental illness, my personal struggles. I had conversations with a few people, and came out with I explained how I had concluded that it was either that the God that I believed in and grew up, quote unquote, understanding was vastly different, or he didn't care about me. And I'm going to tell you, I was right, but not in the way that I thought. I think part of, when you're feeling really bad about yourself, misery loves company. Sometimes we want people to feel bad for us. So maybe I did want I did want it to be true that God didn't care about me, because then it would mean that I was not the failure by not having my own faith heal me, so to speak. If I could say that God didn't care about me, and that's why I was suffering, then that's shifting the blame onto him, and at least I can blame somebody else and not myself. But the problem with that is what I was doing is I was putting God into a box that suited my personal perspectives on life, that suited my personal perspectives on myself, that suited everything that I wanted it to suit. And all these rock bottom moments that I was hitting and changing my perspective, changing my view, I realized that the true God is so much more than I thought. So it took me hitting rock bottom over and over to get a glimpse of who God really is. And with my limited capability of understanding, it still blew me away. Faith in God is not about control over my life. It's not about you being able to control your life. It's about trusting in God's love and His guidance, His comfort during our struggles. So now let's take a look at Matthew, Matthew 17:20, Luke 17:6, with a more accurate, a better understanding than this rigid, fit in the box, accommodate what I want kind of perspective. It isn't about my ability to move the mountain. It's not about my ability to move the mountain. It's not about my ability to cure my mental illness. It's not about my ability to get over my struggles. It's about when I do have to climb that mountain, I know that God's there with me on that journey. As Jesus climbed the mountain with his disciples, who is the mover of mountains? Who is the uprooter of trees? It wasn't them, and they knew it. It was him. It was their faith in him that he was calling them to, not a faith in their ability, in their understanding, in their capabilities. He wanted them to trust him. These are immovable objects. That's the point, is who is the one who can move the immovable? It's not me. It's definitely not me. But do I trust in myself? Do I trust that if I tell a mountain to move, that it will move? No. I trust in the one who can move the mountain. Well, if I have faith that a mountain will move if I tell it to move, then perhaps I should have faith that if God wants me to have to climb a mountain, I'm going to be climbing that mountain. Maybe he wants me to see the view from the top. Maybe he wants me to get some exercise. But if he wants me to climb a mountain, I'm going to climb a mountain. I'm not going to tell God that I don't want to climb that mountain. You're telling me to climb the mountain. I don't want to climb it. I want you to just move it. If I have faith to move that mountain, I should have faith to trust that God is going to be there on my journey up and down the mountain. God allows free will. I can climb that mountain or not. I can trust him or not. But he's not always going to change my circumstances immediately. But he will give me the strength if I have the faith. He will give me the strength to climb that mountain. I wrote something down a while ago that has helped me out from time to time. I said, guilt does not come from the Lord. Conviction comes from the Lord. And like I said, it has helped me out, and I have had to look at that several times over, I don't know, however long ago I wrote that. And there's a difference between guilt and conviction. Guilt tells us I keep getting angry with somebody. I'm getting angry and I just can't stop. Uh, I'm doing this and I can't stop. I'm a bad person because I do this. Um, what conviction says is, I wouldn't want somebody else to be doing that to me. I wouldn't want somebody else to be treating me that way. Uh, I should probably treat them the way that I would like to be treated. I would like to be treated with dignity and respect. And I should probably treat somebody else with dignity and respect. When you feel guilty about something that you've done in the past or you continue to do or whatever, you start getting down on yourself. You're telling yourself, you're speaking negatively. I won't stop doing this. I'm a bad person for this. Whereas conviction is, it's trying to make you better. How are you going to be better today than you were yesterday? How can you improve yourself? You're looking for a goal. You're looking to improve yourself. You're looking towards something better. You're looking toward the positive. You're looking toward improvement. You're not looking down on yourself. And if you have kids, you want them to be better. You want them to be better off than you were. That should be our goal, right? Is to raise our kids to have a better life than we have. If your kids are sitting there constantly being down on themselves, I will never be able to fix this. I will never be able to do that. I'm bad because I get bad grades and all the other kids are smarter than I am. You try to change their perspective. You try to change their mentality to build themselves up, and you build them up as a parent. You're saying, no, look, let's improve your perspective. Let's improve your point of view. Well, that's how God looks at us. He's not looking at us going, you are a bad person, just like we don't look at our kids saying, you are a bad person. Look, you want to improve. I want my kids to improve. Does that mean that I think that they're bad the way they are? No. My my kids, I love my kids. I love them. I love them with every ounce of my being because I want them to improve. Doesn't mean that I think negatively of them, or um, I'm ashamed of them, or they ought to feel guilty. No, I want them to improve so that they can be a better version of who they ought to be. Doesn't By thinking of my kids in the way that they should be better than they are now, doesn't mean that they're bad now. That they're the most amazing version of them that I can see. But if they are better tomorrow than they are today, if they're improving on themselves as a person, as a student, as a friend, as a child, as a sibling, if they're improving on themselves, then how's that going to make me feel? It doesn't make me feel that I have done that. Like, oh, look at me. I love my kids and I want the best for them. That's the way that God looks at us, is going, I want the best for you. I I love you with every ounce of my being, and I want you to be the best version of you. That's conviction. Um, I want to improve myself because this is how I'm designed. This is how I was. This is how we were created, is to be the best version of us. Not to feel guilty about the things that we've done, but to want to improve on who we are. When we read the Bible from that perspective, that it's building us for something better, instead of pointing fingers and saying we're awful people, we start to change our perspective on how we read the Bible, how we read scriptures. when we learn to interpret the writing the way that it's supposed to be read, when we interpret the writing the way it's supposed to be read or taught, then we start to look at it as how to improve ourselves. That's when we can start moving in the right direction, the way that we should be moving to improve ourselves, not to shame ourselves. So then what does real faith look like? How do we change our perspective? How do we have that proper perspective between the Bible and mental health? How do we use, I don't want to say use, but how do we interpret the Bible to improve our mental health? So this is how we change our mentality, how we change our thoughts, how we change our behavior, is we're not relying on God to fix us, quote unquote. We're not expecting our circumstances to be changed immediately, just to be changed at our will because we want our current circumstances to change. So our oldest daughter is 16 now and she's driving, and if she wants to have money, I can continue just to keep giving her money. Say, okay, here's the money to go out and spend on whatever. Or I can have her get a job and she can provide for herself. Think about all of the benefits that she will have by going out and earning money on her own. Do I want her to be able to go out and do things? Do I want her to have gas money? I do. But what I want is not to just give her the things that she wants immediately. I want her to build her character. I want her to build on her life and to start building up her to start building herself up, her self-esteem, her ability to work on her for her own way. If I want God to take away my anxiety, my stress, my depression, I wouldn't be doing these videos if God just immediately took away my stress, my anxiety, my depression at my will. I wouldn't be where I am right now. Who knows what I would be doing, but I wouldn't have that same perspective. And I wouldn't have that same perspective on life, and I wouldn't have that same view of God. I wouldn't have that same view of God in the way that I do right now, that has evolved because of my struggles. So my faith has not come from me trying to be perfect. Um, I, I have learned long ago that, and I tell my kids when I'm doing my woodworking and everything, my projects, my work is not perfect, and neither am I. And my faith does not come from me trying to be perfect. It doesn't come from me working toward perfection or trying to control my outcomes, trying to control every aspect of my life. My faith comes from trust and perseverance in spite of my troubles, in spite of my struggles, in spite of my hardship, through my struggles. So, what does this all boil down to? Struggling with a mental illness doesn't mean that you have a lack of faith, that you're not good enough, that you're weak. It's how you push through, how you persevere. Faith is about enduring, it's about trusting, it's about understanding that God is with us even when we are struggling, that God is with us as we climb those mountains, as we roll, as we stroll through the valleys, or as we're trying to climb out of a pit. God is with us in those moments. That is faith. When we're struggling and when we need to persevere, when we're looking for hope, it's about the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. One of the other verses that, and I don't have it memorized or anything, it's more of the concept that I kind of try and focus on. And I am gonna read it. I do have it written down because, like I said, I don't have it memorized. It's more, like I said, the concept, but it's out of Philippians 4:8. It says, "Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things." That's how we change our perspective, is thinking about the positive, whatever is good, whatever is lovely, whatever is pure, whatever is true. Um, think about such things. Don't think about the negative. Uh, when we start to, when we tell ourselves false narratives, we start to believe those false narratives. And we need to change our perspective to think about focus on the fruit of the Spirit, and focus on whatever is true, whatever is good. Think about those things. As we continue on, we're going to be looking at different verses in the Bible and how a misinterpretation or a misrepresentation or a misunderstanding about those Bible verses can impact us negatively. But if we start looking at them for what they are, for the true meaning of those, they actually will improve our mental health. And so we're going to be, like I said, we're going to be looking at those verses. And if there's any verse that you have struggled with in your life, or anything that you're looking at negatively that is or has been used to kind of tear you down, that you want to look at through the right lens. You want to look at with the right perspective. Let me know if you're watching the video. Then you can put it in the comments section, or if you want to just send that to me. If you're listening, on through the podcast, and you want to send that to me, you can just go to thefightwithdepression.com and go to the contact page, fill that out. It will go right to my email. Nobody else is going to see that, so you don't have to worry about maybe somebody else thinking negatively of you, which I really hope that the listeners and viewers aren't coming at with that perspective. But if you still want to just send that directly to me, you can. And I'm gonna put a link to the website in description, in the notes and everything. And that way, like I said, you can go right there, and let me know. If you have any questions, any comments, any concerns, anything that you would like to add or whatever, please let me know. You can, again, if you're watching the video, just put it in the comment section or email me directly. But we're going to keep pushing on. I'm going to do the podcast. I'm going to try and do the podcast this way, with the video as well, and also just kind of putting out other videos on occasion. And what I really want to do is focus on lifting each other up, lifting ourselves up, looking from the right perspective, instead of just this negativity and tearing each other down. We ought to be lifting each other up, because that's what we're called to do. We're not called to tear each other down. We are called to rebuke from time to time, but don't use a misrepresentation, a misinterpretation of that word rebuke to mean tear down. It does not mean to tear each other down. It means to correct in love. So if you feel that somebody is doing something wrong and they need correction, let's do that properly. correct in love. Let's focus on the right perspective, the right mentality in lifting each other up. Join me as I go forward. Subscribe to whatever you want to listen to this on. If you like watching the video, subscribe on YouTube, whatever podcast you're listening to this on. If you're listening to this on the website, or if you want to look at what we have posted on the website, you can go directly to thefightwithdepression.com, scroll down. Pretty much any page should have an ability for you to put your email in there, and you can subscribe to future posts that I put up. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And until next time, God bless.